know what's strange? There's a phrase that you almost never hear fragrance reviewers say in a video. And it's an idea that is implied by a lot of what they say in the video, but it's never explicitly said. And I'm included in this. I never say this. And it's kind of silly. It's really simple and rudimentary, but it just dawned on me before I started filming. I'm like, why don't we say this?
I freaking love fragrances.
I love perfumery. I love this stuff. It brings me so much joy. Sometimes it brings me stress, but that usually comes with things that we love. You get the duality, but the joy that it brings me is off the screen.
It's up here, you can't even see my head.
Anyway, let's get right into the video. I got a little bit of a fun and torturous video here for you. I've done things like this in the past where I kind of showed you my favorite brands with some of my favorite fragrances from those brands. But I don't believe that I've chosen my absolute one favorite fragrance from every brand.
Maybe I have.
But we're doing it today either way. If I've done it before, then you might see some crossover here. You might see quite a bit of difference. Here's some things to get out the way, some house cleaning. Number one, these are my current ratings. These are my current favorites from these brands. They've changed before and they could change again based on what comes next. Two, obviously, every brand ever is not represented in this video because, well, obviously, but these are some of my favorites. Number three, obviously, I haven't tried every single fragrance from every single brand. So I've put some restrictions in place. I put restrictions on brands from which I've tried at least 5 fragrances. And by tried, I mean spent some time with, gotten to know, might even own at least 5, but I don't have to own them. I could have just had a sample or something like that. And I have an absolute favorite that sticks out. And another restriction, which is a logistical one, is I'm only selecting fragrances that I currently have with me. Because as I mentioned in a recent video, I'm getting ready to move, actually in a matter of days from the time I'm filming this. And most of my fragrances are in the new place. I have a fraction of them here with me at the old spot. So I only chose from what I actually have physically in this apartment. With all that out the way, let's dive right into the list in no particular order. First brand is Hermes. I've tried several. Again, not all, but the one that still sticks out to me as an icon, as a standout, as a timeless masterpiece is still Terre D'Hermes. And as I've said before, wow. As I've said before, this is a fragrance I hated when I first smelled it. I probably hated it for up to a year. Around the time I was getting started into fragrances, it smelled dirty and old manish and kind of like old wood in a weird way, like I'd smell like an abandoned library or something. Who wants to smell like that? But as I matured, I realized actually, no, I was wrong. I'm gonna say that. I'm not saying you're wrong if you don't like this, but I was objectively wrong about this fragrance. It is a masterpiece. It came out in like 2006 or something. There's a reason why it's still a bestseller. There's a reason why it spawned so many flankers and continues to do so. It will stand the test of time. This is earthy, dry, woody, spicy vetiver. So there's this grassy, woody quality to it. And you also have quite a bit of fresh, almost juicy orange, but not sweet. Very refined, very elegant, boss status stuff here. That is Terre D'Hermes. Up next is Parfums de Marly. And a lot of great offerings from this house. I have many that I enjoy, but this is my favorite one. It's always intrigued me ever since it came out. I didn't get to try it for a little while after it came out. When I finally did, my eyes were open like this because I'm smelling it in the air right now. I just sprayed it and this is how I felt when I first smelled it. This is Layton Exclusive. Now, I already had Layton and loved it. I still have it. I still love it. I consider Layton a mainstream fragrance from the niche house of Parfums de Marly. This takes that idea and makes it a little bit more niche. Makes it a little bit less mass appealing. Darkens it up. It's still very aromatic. It's still spicy. It's still fresh and still quite sweet. But they darken it up with a little bit of oud in there, maybe some coffee. It gets warmer. And apparently we have some animalic notes. There is a little bit of a bite to it. Incredible stuff for the winter time. Very elegant. Still retains a little bit of the playful nature of its predecessor, but very grown up, very nighttime, Layton Exclusive. From YSL, lots to choose from here. And this is the one to this day that I still think is really special in terms of modern releases. This is a special fragrance. Not every fragrance they're putting out these days is special. They're pleasant, yes, but their intention is clear. They're trying to make money. I don't think this made a lot of money, hence why it was discontinued, but it is a standout. This is L'Homme Ultime. If you smelled it, then you already know. It does have a designer appeal. This can appeal to a lot of people, but it's using constituents that are not often used as male targeted designer mass appeal elements, like rose. This is a masculine rose fragrance. It is fresh, it is floral, but you do have a nice bright zingy ginger adding a spiciness to it, and you have some pretty robust wood, some dried peppery spicy cedar wood. So it is fresh, it's rosy, which makes it kind of elegant and romantic, but it does have a brightness to it that makes it kind of invigorating, something to wear during the day, maybe when you're a little bit more dressed up, but not necessarily formal. You could actually, I think, dress this down just fine. It could be a casual summer wear outing kind of thing, but I would want to at least put it in a shirt like this. It smells incredible. It's a shame that it's discontinued, but it's still technically out there. I will have links down in the description to everything I can find about all these fragrances, but that's L'Homme Ultime. From the niche house of Parfums Micallef, not a house you see a ton of here on YouTube. This fragrance really surprised me. It blew me away. It was the first one I tried from the house. It absolutely captivated me. I did not expect to love it so much at first sniff. I've tried several others. I have 2 others from the house, and I've sampled at least 5 or 6 others outside of that. But this still remains my favorite, DesirToxic.
That's so good.
This, to me, is kind of like Layton's older, more mature cousin. It doesn't smell just like Layton, but it does share some of the same kinds of elements which give it the same function in a way, but it is a little bit darker. It does have an aromatic nature to it, so it's a little fresh. It does have a warm spiciness to it, like cinnamon, I believe. It does have a sweetness, almost a fruity quality. I think Layton has apple in it. This actually has black currant, which is a darker, juicier, more of a tart, fruity quality that is kind of mouth-watering, honestly. But it does have this very slight tinge of cannabis, which adds a touch of edge. This makes it a little darker, a little bit more mature. You have to be a little bit more confident rocking this one. The cannabis is very subtle, but it comes off with a slightly sour herbal quality that just adds a touch of an edge. So it's not completely smooth around the edges, but I still think that almost anyone would enjoy this. It is undeniably sexy. Check out DesirToxic if you haven't already. I gotta be honest with you,
I think I kind of put this fragrance on the map.
this is John Varvatos vintage. First, we'll get that out the way. But look, here on YouTube, you do a little search. What is the first thing you see? I'll wait. Oh.
That's me.
And then we got a video with my boy Ross, which we shot when we first met, actually in New York several years ago. Anyway, I've been talking about this fragrance for a while because it captivated me at first sniff. It really surprised me as far as designer fragrances go when I first smelled it like 5 years ago. I will tell you, if you haven't tried this yet and you've been watching my channel, I don't know what's wrong with you.
But there's still time. Save yourself.
As you've probably seen in some recent videos, Grace doesn't love this fragrance, at least when I've had her try it on paper. I did have her try it blindly on my skin one time, and she actually really enjoyed it. It wasn't amazing, but she liked it a lot. This is kind of a hard scent to pin down. It is such a beautiful blend of elements that make it kind of familiar in an old school way, but also unique and unlike anything else out there. There's nothing that smells quite like vintage. It is aromatic, so it's fresh. There is this fruity tart quality. I think there's a lot of rhubarb in here. You have quince as well. And it's quite smooth and suede, leather-like, and a touch of earthy tobacco in there, but it's all just blended in a pot. Rodrigo Flores Roux is the perfumer and did a masterful job with this fragrance. I could go on and on, but again, if you haven't tried it, do yourself a favor. Let's talk about the House of Creed. I have 3 real favorites from this house in my current collection. It was hard to choose, but I'm pretty sure this is my favorite one. I'm usually in the mood to wear this more often than the others. When I do smell it from the atomizer, it always makes me smile, and I'm always tempted to wear it every time I smell it. So I have to force myself to wear the others. But the others that I love are great. But my favorite has got to be Viking. This is a little polarizing because it surprised people. They weren't expecting something like this as a follow-up to Aventus, so to speak. I think it's incredible. I really enjoyed it when I first smelled it back when it came out in 2017, and I love it even more today. It is old school. It does smell a little bit like Ben Gay. It does smell a little bit like Old Spice or Tiger Balm or something like that. But in a very wearable fashion. It is a fougere, kind of modern, but also harkening back to older styles of perfumery for men. It is very aromatic and fresh with lots of lavender, accented by a ton of bright, juicy citruses. You also have a lot of pink pepper, so there is a pretty intense spicy quality to it. But as it dries, it gets a little rosy, which adds an interesting quality to the fougere genre here. You do have some richer elements like sandalwood and vetiver and patchouli. So it gets woody, it gets a little darker and earthy and kind of sexy, but in a grown kind of way. Very elegant stuff, very fun to wear. I love Viking from Creed. I think it's still my favorite. Royal Oud comes this close, but this barely edges it out. From Maison Francis Kurkdjian. Not everyone's favorite fragrance here because I don't think a lot of people have tried it as much as they've tried the others. And there are some fantastic others, stuff like Oud Set Mood, stuff like the original Oud, which is incredible, Grand Soir, Baccarat Rouge 540, the list goes on and on. Plenty of great standout fragrances, but my favorite is Gentle Fluidity Silver. Still to this day, I find it one of the most versatile but unique fragrances in my collection, and one that actually performs and has great presence and longevity and smells simple but captivating. It is very cooling and fresh with lots of sharp juniper berry, so it has a bit of a gin quality to it. Not overly boozy, but a little spirit-like, but incredibly invigorating and cooling and fresh. You have some spicy coriander, which adds this very interesting, almost clay-like quality to it. Almost like herbal, maybe reminiscent of something like cilantro, but very subtle. And you do have some amber in here, so it's warm. You have vanilla, so it's sweet. And you have some musk. Very functional, very versatile. Like I said, you can dress it up or down. You can wear it day or night. You can wear it any season. Doesn't matter. A total workhorse, but something that smells a little different and something that will get some positive attention because it's just beautiful, well-crafted stuff. Gentle Fluidity Silver. Coming from Fragrance du Bois, not a fragrance house that everyone's gonna try because they're not the most accessible. They are expensive, especially this fragrance I'm about to talk about. I could never, ever, ever in a million years recommend you to blind buy this fragrance I'm about to show you. Please don't. Do not blind buy a bottle of this. Get a sample if you're interested. This is called Sarah, formerly Sarah Oud. Look at this stuff. It is opulent looking and it smells as opulent as it looks. This is technically a rose oud, some of the finest ingredients I've ever smelled in a fragrance. A very smooth, realistic oud, slightly earthy, slightly medicinal and dark, but made so soft in a way, it's almost airy and almost evades your nose when you go to smell it up close, with a little bit of warm sweetness in there, perhaps some spice. Extremely elegant and perfectly unisex. This one was provided to me by my good friends at Max Aroma. I always talk about them. They have some of the best selection on the internet for niche and designer fragrances at discounted rates, so check them out down below if you're interested. But you might be able to get a sample from them, I'm not sure, but only try it if you can get a sample. Incredible fragrance, breathtaking stuff in the genre. Very wearable oud rose. If you're afraid of oud, you might actually like this. From Roja Parfums, this was a tough pick because he has many fragrances that I truly love. I've had people ask me,
well, would you recommend the fragrances if you weren't sent them for free?
Yes, I would, because I love high quality perfumery, and no matter what the heck I say about his fragrances, you cannot deny that they are high quality and that they smell interesting and that they can smell really good and captivating. This is Oligarch Eau de Parfum. You cannot get this anymore. I think you can still sample it in certain places, but you will be hard pressed to find a full bottle. But you can get the Parfum version, which I do have. I think I still prefer the Eau de Parfum version to it because it's brighter, it has more pop and lift to it, which is better for the warmer weather. The Parfum is actually better for more moderate temperatures. Still fresh, still has that fruity, citrusy vibe that's very bright and sweet and almost mouth-watering. Has a spicy nature, has some robust woods in the base. A very complex fragrance, but super easy to wear. But I prefer this one. This is one of my first loves from the house. I love Scandal Pour Homme, which still blows me away. I love Danger, I love Diaghilev, I love Reckless, the list goes on, but this is still my top. Easily my most recommended one from the house. If I had to just choose one for you to try, this would be it, over Elysium, which is good too, but this is more interesting. But I'm choosing it for myself. This is my favorite. And now, the final house here, Zaharoff. Some might say a conflict of interest. I say yet again with Roja Parfums, this is high quality perfumery. This is perfumery at its finest, down to the little details. And those of you who've tried the brand, please sound off in the comments. You know what I'm talking about. I know so many of you love this brand. My favorite from George's releases has to be Signature Rosé. Again, one of the best releases of last year, if you're asking me. A rose fragrance for rose lovers and rose haters. As I like to say, it is a rose incense. Several types of rose in here, so it is quite opulent and a little fresh, but there's a dense quality to it, but it's made kind of airy and a little bit smoky with incense, with olibanum, I believe. Not smoky as in fire, as in dark burning something, but if you can imagine the smell of incense, there's even a cooling nature to it sometimes. You get that mixing in all together. You have lots of elements here. This is built on top of the Signature Pour Homme DNA, so you do have oud in here, you do have sandalwood, you do have some resins and things like that, and there's some beautiful vanilla in here that on my skin with a little bit of heat mixes with the oud and turns almost to chocolate. So you get this chocolate rose incense vibe that is kind of delectable, succulent, and very alluring, but still elegant. Incredible stuff. No rose fragrance smells quite like this. That is Signature Rosé. But I do have to mention one more fragrance. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about this because this is a fragrance that I created in collaboration with Zaharoff. It is my most worn fragrance of last year. I've worn the most out of every fragrance I own, and it's obviously one of my favorites in my collection, and that is Brass and Soul. No longer available. Those of you who have it, I really appreciate all your messages when you tell me how much you enjoy it or that you're still wearing it. You keep coming back to it. You get tons of compliments, whatever it may be. You make me so happy and thrilled. You guys are the reason why I was able to do this, and I'm still so honored to have a fragrance under my own name that is from my creative mind. And I think it came out stellar thanks to perfumer Vince Kuczinski. This is actually a new bottle. I have my personal bottle, which is probably down here. I have several backups just from my own stash. This is one I just opened it up because my bottle is at the new place. I still think this is incredible. Yeah, I'm biased, but I love this fragrance. From opening to dry down and everything in between. Me in a bottle. That is Brass and Soul. And those are 10 brands that are some of my favorites and one fragrance from each brand that I painstakingly chose as my top favorite from the house. So I would love to know what you think. Once again, let me know down in the comments if you want to see more content like this. I'd be happy to do it again. It was actually a lot of fun, even though it was not easy to put this together. But let's talk about it. If you love any of these fragrances I've talked about, yet again, that's what the comments are for. But nonetheless, thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.